On the agenda this morning is a public hearing on general obligation county purpose loan agreement. So I guess we can open it up for public hearing. Open up the public. Any comments? Supervisors, any?
I had none.
Letters, written, oral, roll calls, nothing? Nothing?
No.
Yes, Dale.
Yeah, well, I guess I want to know what you're doing. I read the newspaper story and it didn't make sense to me, and I talked to Jim and he said he wasn't sure either, so maybe you can tell him.
Well, we have to borrow some money to complete this wastewater treatment facility that is being required of us for the Valent Corporation, Valent Bio Science Corporation. They're in the county. They want to stay in the county. The county is going to have to build the pre-treatment facility for the wastewater. And they have to borrow the money for that.
Right. State too, we are borrowing the money, but then we'll be directing their taxes, as well as when Kathy was here, we talked about that additional assessment. They'll be in a special assessment district, so we can collect some additional revenue to them to service the county's debt deal. So we are using TIF really as a standalone project. The county will incur the debt, but then we will direct the taxes and some special assessments from the company to service the debt. So that it'll be a standalone project, not on the shoulders of the county or the taxpayers in the county.
So you'll be selling GO bonds, or in the amount of?
Is it 12.5, 12,500,000? The numbers.
Part of them are going to be tax
So both some are
and not tax.
tax exempt because they're two aspects of the project.
12.5.
$12,750,000. As it sits today, that could change.
Is that partly for the Osage?
Yes.
Okay.
The people-
The two
That's the
combined
difference between the taxable and the tax exempt.
Okay.
This out here,
is 9.
Taxable.
those out there are non-tax, or
Tax
tax
exempt.
exempt, excuse me. So if you bought those bonds out there, the earnings you made on those bonds, you would not have to pay any tax on it.
State, federal, and local.
Correct, ma'am?
So it's 9 million for the Valent and 3 point.
I'm not sure how it's divided out. Do you have those figures,
Oh,
Kathy?
you know, I didn't bring,
Well, I've seen different, I've seen
and
numbers
I
out
don't-
here now.
I don't work on that, Jeff.
And
That's
The financial plan.
And this out here, I've seen lower too.
Jeff.
And then there's also the fact that when we go out, when Tom was here, we were gonna go out for bids on equipment and hopefully save 900
Almost $1
or
million.
million plus on that, so
But
those numbers are all in
Right.
flux right now, I think.
you know, Betty, as you know, you try to get the maximum amount. Just, you know, you can borrow anything under that.
Sure.
And I'm not sure exactly how it's being broken out in Northland Securities. That's kind of their thing. But the cost for the two projects, I think it was about that 12 million. And then there's a little bit of there was a little bit of switching for the conservation building.
Okay.
I think Barb said that because of some of the way there were some extra expenses, so the proceeds for the conservation building, she needs to reimburse those accounts. So I think there's a little bit expected to be in there for that, but not.
The lion's share of it is directed to the VBC project,
Right.
which will be, that particular aspect of debt for the county will be serviced by redirecting their taxes, as well as this special assessment district that we're going to create to ensure that the debt payment that the county will be making will be covered with the revenue that VBC will be providing with taxes and special assessment.
So Milt, how much was the difference in the county?
Well, we were approved for 400,000, and actually, there won't be any additional
Okay,
expense.
it's just a
We're
transfer.
actually coming in under budget. I think we'll be at about 350 to 360 when everything comes in. So there's no additional beyond what we're approved for to start with.
But you just
Just
needed
a-
some more money to finish.
There's just a
that road.
switching of where that funding is coming from, basically, rather than the last TIF from the windmills to this TIF, is my understanding of where there's not additional expense to the county as a result of the building. It's originally
Yeah, I
what we were-
didn't mean to imply that. I just-
No.
I was gonna correct that. Well, I don't want anybody thinking that, but, no, so actually we'll be coming in a little bit under budget when everything comes in.
The portion, you say that Valent is paying this money, this is a loan, or what is it? And that they're paying it back?
You know,
Through their
in
taxes?
many ways, it is really a loan deal, but it is, we are using tax increment financing as a means to allow us to do that. So it's in a urban renewal
For a
plan.
portion.
Yeah, and so that, it's basically, they are paying their tax. Sometimes, you know, when we do an economic development project, they expect all these infrastructure improvements to be made, and they want a relief on their taxes. This project has said, you know, that aspect of the project's important to us, we need it done in order to site in Mitchell County. And the negotiation is that in lieu of giving them property tax incentives directly, that they would pay their taxes and we would use their taxes to pay down the debt. We anticipate that their taxes aren't gonna quite cover our debt, and that's why we're creating a special assessment district so that we can collect additional taxes from them to service the county's debt as it relates to the BBC.
And how long will that take to service that debt?
20 years we're projecting.
Okay, does that include the interest on that?
Yes,
debt?
absolutely.
And there's 9 million, what is it, 9 or 12
There's
million?
2 aspects of the project. A total of 12 between the two or thereabouts. And again, we're functioning without really having all of the exact estimates, and the project is not
And it's
like
gonna take
to bid.
20 years of the taxes they owe in order to pay this back? What are they paying in taxes?
Oh, no, I didn't bring
You
that
know,
file.
that
but-
is, I mean, whatever their tax payment is, then the special assessment will come in to cover the balance. So that might be a large amount, it might be a small amount, but again, we have to get the framework in place. Once the facility is actually up, we can go in and do a final
Okay,
assessment.
now let's go back to this TIP money. You have all kinds of TIP money available to cover any of this stuff?
We are, other TIF in the county does not relate to this project deal. This project is a standalone project within our existing district, so, this project, no wind turbine dollars, none of that is going to be involved in this project. It's purely their taxes and their special assessment that'll fund this debt.
These are just general obligation bonds.
They're sewer, they're actually not even general obligation. It's too bad. Jeff,
Not revenue
Jeff
bonds,
is
are they?
really,
they're sewer bonds.
yes.
They're public infrastructure bonds, so it's not general obligation.
Doesn't require anything but just action of the board to do that.
Because they're sewer bonds. Mhm.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
That means then that for 20 years, all the property taxes that Valent would be paying,
Not all, Betty,
not all,
no.
just, okay.
Just the things, you know, the schools, instructional support levies, Pebbles,
Any
the,
existing debt.
any existing debt. These are new taxes. I mean, these are, because of the magnitude of the project, there is going to be a significant increase in those sort of levies to the taxing entities in the county. But yes, in terms of the levies, you know, these are new taxes we do not have today.
No, I understand that.
And so, they are going to be, until the debt is paid, obligated to those
That's what I wanted to make
Yeah.
clear, yeah.
But there is new taxes, and there are things that cannot be included into the agreements, and so, those entities that have debt, as well as the school, will see new taxes.
The school will see new taxes.
They will see on their instructional support levy and their physical plant and
This would
equipment
be-
levy,
this
and
would
if
be
they have
Osage-
any debt.
this would be the
That
Osage
would
school.
be the Osage school, just like the St. Ansgar district saw some additional taxes when Absolute cited there, and when Gray Millers is went through expansion, so. They have seen, and I'm not sure if the Beyond Pebble and instructional support levy, if Osage School District has any debt right now. I assume a little. I cannot
be a
speak
little.
for sure, because I have not looked at their levies to,
Lincoln
for the,
School, I think.
That's
was-
for the
fine.
break,
I think
breakdown.
Lincoln School was last, but.
Yeah, I think the Lincoln School was the last.
Do they
one.
have
got the-
anything,
got
well,
the
did they
barn
use
thing.
local
Bus
option
barn.
sales tax
Bus
on
barn
bus
people.
barn
I
and,
don't know.
yeah, that's what I was wondering about, bus barn and weight room and that.
So I would think they'd be paying on that.
So, but anything that's a debt levy or an instructional support levy, and when you're dealing with a large project, those dollars can add up fairly quickly, because of the scale of the assessment.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just one more question.
Sure.
Can you give me some idea when, I'm reading from the paper, and I don't get many of these meetings, the whole list of items and the expenses that you're gonna spend is gonna be all TIF money. And my question is, a year from now, or maybe 2 years from now, when you get all of this accomplished, I guess you're talking about a natural gas pipeline and some other stuff in the courthouse. What kind of indebtedness do you think the county will be at, or the TIF districts? What kind of money are we talking about? How many years of TIF revenue will it take to pay all that off?
Can't really answer that.
I'm
because
just
a couple of
prepared today to
projects
talk
haven't
about
developed.
the VBC project, that's what I'm here to discuss
The
today.
the only one we're really
Yeah.
into right now, deep enough, I guess, is the Valent project to
Yeah,
be 20 years.
yeah.
The other stuff
We're
is
talking-
maybe,
What's the total, what is it, $40–50 million? I don't know.
I think it's
Adding them all
19,
up.
I think it's 19.
Dale, it's probably under $40 million. We right now have the ability to go up to 51 million in TIF debt.
In geo debt. General obligation.
Yep, general obligations.
Total.
And they have 19 million in outstanding.
And part of what's also happening is part of the bonds are starting to get repaid on our first road project. And when we done our first road project, we set it up for, I believe it was a 10-year time span. We didn't try to stretch it to 20. And so, like I say, the first payment already is starting to be made. And so some of that debt is going down every year as we speak. So this will be, it'll be fluctuating up and down.
Because we're also adding significant amount of tax base as well, that's also allowing the 51 to also grow every year.
Grow,
So-
yep.
So it's, those are all, it's kind of a moving target as it relates to that number.
Well, it's confusing to me. As you're saying, you think at the end of it, assuming all these things that you're talking about happen, that you're gonna be at 40 million or so.
That's approximately, yes.
And, okay, the revenue from the wind turbines could be a couple of million a year, starting in 2014.
At some point in time, if I remember right, and I'm trying to go by memory here, so.
So am I.
But at some point in time, I think it gets close to 3 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. The revenue from,
And a portion, the VBC project, again, I need to keep stressing, that needs to be kept somewhat separate because that is a standalone project. While it's in this same urban renewal plan, it really is a project within, I mean, that bigger area it's a standalone, it's doing its own thing. The dollars for that project are going to be directed to the infrastructure for that project. So it's not in, that debt payment is different than what's coming from the turbines.
Is BBC, is that it? Is that gonna be in a TIF district also, or?
It isn't, it had to be in a TIF district in order for us to use the tax dollars to redirect towards the debt.
And you still get revenue, even though it's in a, revenue comes from what?
Their taxes and their special assessment. That's how we're gonna service that debt.
I mean, the tax that are already on the land, or?
No,
that
the
stays.
taxes that'll be coming. The new taxes to be created when the project is built. We'll service
So,
that
Yeah,
debt.
but you're
even though it's in
talking
a
about,
TIF, in a TIF district, they still pay tax.
Absolutely.
How much?
That's again what we don't know until we get our final projected assessment.
But you
And
could take the levy times, there's a
Yeah.
minimum assessment agreement that they will
they
pay
have
on a value of no less than, I think, $10.5 million. So
Yeah.
take the current levy minus the debt, that gives you your TIF levy, multiply that, and then you'd know what we're
About what it is.
anticipating.
And then whatever that figure is, ultimately with what the county's debt is for the project, we're going to develop a special assessment to cover the balance if their taxes do not cover it. And again, and they're not getting any tax incentives on top of this.
I'm not really concerned, I'm happy that they're getting it, I want to become like I said before, but my concern about that TIF money, as I've said it before, is that the bulk of the money, in fact, all of it, comes from those folks, those of us who have property in the St. Ansgar and Wrightsville School District. That's where it comes. If you didn't TIF it, if you didn't have it in TIF, that would go into the general fund, and about a little less than half right now would go for the schools. Schools are under, as you know, under a spending limitation, they would be required to lower everybody's property tax in those two school districts if that money was still part of the school district. And in essence, it's a huge increase in taxes for those of us who live there for the next.
You're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong
You're
on.
wrong.
You're absolutely wrong on that part, because what's happening with the TIF is the state is backfilling the school portion. 87.5% of the school portion is being backfilled by the state of Iowa. So that is not going to, that portion is not going to affect your property taxes. The other thing that you have to keep in mind, well, first of all, when the state is bringing that money in, now we're getting state money to help us here in Mitchell County. This is a substantial portion of state money coming that is, instead of the state foolishly spending it on some project down in Des Moines, they're helping us out. Secondly of all, if property taxes are lowered, they're also lowered on the windmills itself. And so, again, we're able to use that money here in Mitchell County to benefit us all, where if the property taxes were lowered, they would have a substantial discount, and yours are not going to go down near as much as you think they are. I mean, it's not like the pot of money just comes to the rest of us and the windmills stay separate. The windmills goes down just like everybody else. They're a big player in this. We're actually able to utilize other people's tax money to our advantage in the long run, is really going to put us eons ahead of everybody else in this area for economic development. And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Well,
It benefits
you're
all
wrong,
that
you're wrong about this. The state's share that they pay back to backfill is about $465,000. We're losing $1.2 million. The difference between 465 and $1.2 million is the amount that the rest of us got to pick up.
Can I ask a question, since this is not about TIF, but about this other project, which we're going off on a different subject? So Chairman, can I ask to redirect this to a different question, different subject? What is different between tax and tax exempt of these two? Can you tell me? Because I'm confused on the two of them.
Ken is easy when you kind of understand why there's two differences.
The project is split in two parts. One is the Osage wastewater treatment plant. That has a benefit well beyond just Valent, because that's going to help everybody who's served by that district. So that the cost for that project, which I'm just throwing out rough numbers, is $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
That can be tax exempt debt,
Gotcha.
because by code, that helps many people. The Valent pretreatment project just benefits Valent.
Okay.
So then it's taxable, because by code it has one beneficiary. I just did some quick math. I'm guessing they're gonna pay at a minimum about $260,000 to $280,000 a year in taxes. I didn't have the exact levy, I don't have the exact tip, but that's about what their tax bill will be. I mean, that's,
That makes more sense now. I wasn't sure which was exempt, which was tax exempt, so now I understand.
That's how it
Okay,
goes, yeah.
that makes sense. Thank you.
They're a private organization, right?
private company.
What keeps them here for 20 years? Are they under contract?
They are, that's the
part of the
development
development
agreement that says that if there are default pieces, that if there's any default, they will be required to pay it back.
If they go bankrupt, you don't get much.
You still have the property, you're still sitting, you're owners of the property.
But I think Dale is absolutely right that you're raising the taxes, not raising the taxes, but you could have lowered the taxes. A lot of people are on a fixed income. And when you put all this into TIF and you say redirect the money, that's kind of I like that phrase, redirect the money. But when you don't lower the taxes, you put quite a strain on people that on a fixed income.
Don, since I've been on the board, I don't think we've raised levies at all, have we?
No, I agree, but you could have lowered it.
But then you have to look at the big picture. What are we getting?
I don't know.
I mean, do we want to? I drive through a lot of counties. And a lot of counties are jealous of Mitchell County because they don't have what's going on in Mitchell County. I mean, do we want to be progressive and do we want to move forward or do we want to regress? I guess is the question. And to the school levy,
You move forward on the back of fixed income people.
the amount of money you get from the state it's in direct relationship to whether you're a property poor district or a property rich district. And this little graph here I got from the superintendent down here shows everybody pays the $5.40 uniform levy. That goes on every bit of property in the county. Okay? Now if you're a property poor district, you're not going to collect many tax dollars. And the state's going to backfill this portion per student. If you're property rich, the school district is going to get, that's what's going to be, and the state will backfill less. Does that make it any clearer? Or
That's only part of the story, Joel. I think you know that.
and then at the top, you have to have the additional levy.
You
You can only spend 500, what was it, 5,000 so many dollars per student per year.
6,000, yeah, 5,800.
Well, then the information I
I
got.
understand. We're getting away from what it should be talking about, I'm sure, but
Yeah, I know.
but the real issue is that currently, if this, now it's going to take 7 years, it's a partial abatement on these wind turbines, so about 2014 you'll be at where you ought to be, I mean where you will be for, that's 30% of construction costs. About $100 million of assessable valuation is what is in those wind turbines. And the school, the state backfills a portion of the uniform levy. You have about 87% of that, $5.40. And that's about $460,000 to $470,000. Okay, but if it was in the school district, if it was all there, those schools, the two schools would be getting $1.2 million. So we're not getting that, but the state's backfilling $470,000. The difference between $470,000 and $1.2 million exhibits a tax increase for every property owner in those two school districts who have, whose property is not exempt, which is most of us. We're talking $700,000 to $800,000 every year. For 20 years, you're talking $20 million or so, or 18 million, I don't know what it is, but it's a lot of money. And you're saying, it doesn't cost anybody anything. You're wrong.
Would you have had to raise our taxes to fix our roads,
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
had we not utilized TIF? My
Absolutely.
understanding, I was here many meetings when we first started talking about this, and there was discussions of what was gonna have to be done with our roads if we didn't identify a funding vehicle to perhaps get those corrected. So when we say that, I look at what the increase would have been, and while I can appreciate our homeowners, I have to answer to our industries that are trying to remain competitive in a worldwide marketplace. And the ability that we were able to, and lucky enough that we happen to be located where we are in Iowa. I mean, I think at some point in time, somebody needs to understand what it would have cost all of us as taxpayers in this county to improve our roads and bridges, that $19 million, what it would have meant to us if we would have had to go out and use traditional funding sources, and how that would have raised every one of our levies in order to get that done. And
My problem is that you folks, whoever live in Osage, you don't have to pay that. We're paying it from St. Ansgar and Riceland. I agree with general obligation bonds, and I believe in everybody paying their share. I think it should be that way. We do something with the courthouse. That means people in Osage pay the same as people in St. Ansgar and Riceville and Statesville and McIntyre. But my farmland is 20 miles away from here, and you're going to say I should pay extra taxes for whatever you're going to do here in Osage.
But aren't the
Leo, I don't
lion's
wanna
share of
pay
the
for a brand
roads?
new road by
Yeah.
your house.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't come to town here and pay my special assessment for my pavement. Did you wanna do that too?
I don't know how to.
No, all right, see, we did it,
Hey, you're switching the subject now.
no,
sir.
you're,
I think-
you're
I
saying
think the
general obligation
Osage-
bonds, that's,
You've
you're
always done
talking
it
to
this
me.
way. The cities have always done it for their own streets. I don't know how you do it all, but we're talking about
Special assessment.
something else, right? You're talking, this is not a special, you're taking all of the money that is generated from these 136, $100 million worth of accessible valuation. They cost $330 million to build. They're all in St. Ansgar and Riceland. And all that revenue for schools. I won't even argue about the portion that the counties use, because there's some fairness to that.
How much revenue are people receiving having all those wind turbines on their properties each year? Where's that revenue going?
It's going in my pocket, those that I have, but
Yeah,
I
how
pay,
many do you
but I
have?
still pay
Taxes,
How
taxes.
many do you have?
5. It has nothing to do with it. The county could have $1 million, the county
Goes
would
in your
have,
pocket,
the
yeah.
county's generating $2.5 million, and you're giving it all away.
Well, Leo, I think we're doing a lot of good things for Mitchell County.
Well,
And I'll go back to that same, do you wanna regress or do you wanna progress?
And the thing about the gas line is that is going to be a revenue producer again. And the gas that's going to be flowing through it, we're going to get a transportation charge. And when it's said and done, we're going to own part of a $21 million asset that will be revenue producing each and every year. And so, again, we cannot get new industry to come here if we do not have the ability to provide natural gas. Industry is not going to do it. We, again, are thinking long-term, we're thinking outside of the box, we're planning on how can we be the most competitive here in North Iowa, and we will be. We will be steps ahead, eons ahead of all of these other counties because of the planning that we're doing today. Is it going to necessarily help me in 20 years? No, I very well will be pushing up daisies. But we also have to be looking for the future. We can't always be just planning for the day and not looking for the future. And I think that's one of the things that I really have to commend this board on, is that we're not just looking for today. How do we get by today? We're looking at what's happening 10, 15, 20 years from now to try to make this a much better county than all of the surrounding counties. And I think we ought to be commended for it, not put down for it.
Well, in the last 10 years, this county's lost 365 students graduating in our schools, like all the other North Iowa counties. That's about more than $6,000 per student. What is it? Between Riceville and St. Ansgar and Osage, 365 students fewer than we had in 2001 or 2002. It's the same through all North Iowa. I don't know what we can do about that. Mitchell County is no better off, no worse than anybody else.
Part of the problem is, in our county, is first of all, the Mennonites don't utilize our school system. The Amish don't utilize our school system. And we have how many people now homeschooling? We got three big issues there that if all three of those would be utilizing our school, I would hate to even try to venture how many scores of more students would be in the school system. I mean, this is something I can't change, but we have been able to bring in 300 and some new jobs, factory jobs, in the last few years, or they will be coming with the Valent thing. I think over 360 new jobs have been created in the last 5 to 6 years. I mean, this is a tremendously good thing when you look at the other counties around us. They're not even coming close to what we're doing.
I'm in favor of all that. I'm in favor of all that. My problem is that you're taking all this money out of.
Bill, we have to have something to work with. We can't do it with thin air.
You never had it in the first place.
That's right.
Joel?
You never had it in the first place.
Joel, if you were working for someone here in Mitchell County and they paid you $50,000 a year, you're a good guy and you're good, and your boss calls you in.
I'll sign up, deal, where do I go?
Boss calls you, Joel, I like what you've done, you're good for us. I'm going to give you a $25,000 a year increase in salary. And 2 months later, when you don't see it in your check, you go to the boss, and the boss says, I'm paying it, but the county supervisors found a way to tip that salary increase and use it for economic development. But tell Joel, he didn't miss it because he's getting the same money he got last year.
No, deal?
That's not
Say deal? Deal? Back in 2002, the county went ahead and we passed an ordinance that allowed the windmill people to have a choice on how they were going to pay their property tax. If the county would not have done this, all of those taxes from the windmills would have gone to the state of Iowa. Those windmills would have, yes, you look this up, those windmills all sitting here in Mitchell County, none of that tax money would have been coming to Mitchell County. We passed the ordinance that allowed the 30%, and it was up to then the windmills themselves to choose. Do they want to pay it to the state of Iowa, down in Des Moines, or do they want to pay it here? You look it up. We done that. That was our initiative, and that is why we are having some of the success that we are having.
I thought.
No, you look it up. Ordinance 2002.
But did it say that the county has to put into a TIF district, or just put in general fund? I talked to the attorney in Houston 3 years ago. I couldn't understand, they're paying the money and it's going into a TIF district. And I said, well, why don't you just pay it, as you're getting no benefit from this, why don't you just let it go into the general fund? This is the attorney in Houston, this is what she told me. She said, well, we talked with your supervisor, Stan Walk, and your economic development director, Brenda Dreyer. She's speaking from her notes, she's the attorney there. She said, they told me that if we'd let that money in the regular general fund, the schools would have so much money they wouldn't know what to do with it all. Okay, so when you came to talk to me a month or so later at my home, you told me the same thing. And then I talked to Chuck Peterson at St. Ansgar Enterprise, and he said, yeah, Stan told me that too. If we left the money in a general fund, schools would have so much money they wouldn't know what to do with it all. The fact is the schools got no more money, they get the same as they get if they're not, because the schools are required, because of spending limitations, to reduce their levy. And if they need more money, they just add it to the levy every year to get the money that's coming to them, the money that the state doesn't pay.
And my statement would have been is that our school districts are controlled by how much they can spend per people. That's what my message always is that.
That's all.
I mean, I wish I could say all of this economic development means great, great things to our school districts. They are still controlled by the state of Iowa by how much they can spend. The biggest thing we can do in economic development is do our best to bring new jobs and keep the jobs we have, so that there is some hope, because families have less kids. That's the other thing we can't do anything about. Dio, you had lots of children, and I mean, nowadays people have a couple children, not 6 kids, you know. So we need to be constantly recruiting in new people that have kids. We're blessed with a population that likes to stay here once they retire. So we have an aging population. The best thing we can do in economic development is create opportunities for young families to move here and take jobs here. But because the state tells our school districts what they can spend, it really, new investment doesn't really help them out a lot. And we've already got a nice tax base. We already have very rich farmland. We're collecting a lot of taxes in our school districts. And
Yes.
The fact is that all states limit the Supreme Court 30, 40, 50 years ago dictated that every student is equal to equal educational priorities.
That's their way of tracking
Yeah,
that.
the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that, and so every state has some kind of a formula to make sure that happens.
And so that's what.
And so that's why we have a $6,000 limit, because that's all they can charge in Urbandale.
So that's what I would say is that.
Everybody is treated the same.
Yeah, that in all reality.
So the state didn't have any choice, they had to do that, didn't they?
I guess I'd like to make one remark, if I might.
Go ahead, Betty.
You know, the economic development that happens in Osage is really, or in St. Ansgar, or in Riceville, is really benefiting people all over the county. You know, if it weren't for jobs in Osage, and I came from Riceville, and I remember Smitty saying in the paper, we always have to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. Osage gets everything. You know what? People from Riceville come to Osage to work. People from Osage go to Riceville. People from St. Ansgar come to Osage. People from Osage go to St. Ansgar. We all benefit one another, and I wish that we somehow could get off this. And like I say, I came from Riceville, but the mentality that Osage gets everything, and you know, and we don't get anything, because it's not true. Every community has aspects that benefit, I think.
You're right, Betty, it's regionalism,
You know?
and something like 55% of the people that work here in Mitchell County come from outside the county to work here. Over half,
I'm pretty proud of the economic
and
development.
if the economic development wasn't that good here, they wouldn't be coming here.
This is huge.
But anyway, we're getting way off.
we're way off.
We're going way around the subject here today, and we could be here till midnight discussing TIF deal. I understand where you're coming from, that we didn't have a different plan to fix your roads up by your farm, so we went with that. We're here for the public hearing on the General Obligation County Purpose Loan Agreement of approximately, what is it, $12,750,000? $12,750,000. Is there any further discussion? I'll close this portion of the public hearing. 10:10. Item 10 is resolution taking additional action to enter into a loan agreement and authorizing the use of preliminary official statement in connection therewith.
Do you have a resolution number for that loan?
826-12.
So moved.
826-12, a motion by Stan.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The resolution taking action, Resolution 826-12, taking action, additional action to enter into a loan agreement and authorizing the use of preliminary official statement in connection therewith. Roll call vote, Walk.
Aye.
Volklander.
Aye.
Morel, aye. Motion carried. Item 11 is a resolution setting a date for a public hearing on designation of the expanded Mitchell County urban renewal area and non-urban renewal plan amendment.
What do we have for the date
How
on
many
that?
dates?
Well, John sent those documents.
June 19th?
Is the public hearing. There were some blanks, so they are filled in. With the exception of, Stan, I was going off the top of my memory on which lot we were adding in St. Ansgar. And I had lot 2 and 3 instead, it's lots 3 and 4 when I talked to Ivan. So this amendment allows the additional property. And please turn to Exhibit A to make sure we have the rights of way of US Highway 218 from the Minnesota border through the intersection of 465th Street. Is that correct? Okay. And then lots 3 and 4 for the secondary road shed. So the other actions we'll need, and I went in to ask Mark and he was on the phone, but of course we'll need to have this brief document go in front of planning and zoning, and then we'll have to have a consultation hearing. In the documents, Lowell, when John and I were chatting about what property might be added, we were under the misunderstanding it was all of 218. So he included Osage and Riceville. We do not need to notify them. We only need to notify St. Ansgar. So, and
And I
there's
want
no.
to see, I want to talk to you before you leave.
Okay, yep. And so there is no taxable additional property being added except the property that will be, in industrial property. So we'll need those 2 dates set also.
The date for, you got 2 dates, June 12th, 19th, and
No, we need, I don't know when you want to set the consultation hearing. There wasn't a date in there,
No,
was
there
there?
wasn't.
Yeah. Or when you want to set the planning and zoning meeting.
Now that would be Mark
Right. So
Ross.
they are not required as part of this resolution, but just those are 2 steps we'll have to
Okay.
make sure we have.
So a resolution setting a date for a public hearing on this expanded urban renewal is it June 19th, is that correct, Lowell?
Correct. Need to set a time.
9:30?
Check.
June 19th, okay. Make it 9:30.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the date of June 19th at 9:30 a.m. for the public hearing on designation of the expanded Mitchell County urban renewal area and urban renewal plan amendment. Roll call vote, Volklander.
Aye.
Walk.
Aye.
Morel. Aye. Motion carried. Well, looks like we have to continue our meeting in Charles City at high noon, huh?
Correct.
So we'll recess until that time?
Yeah. That was
Anything else?
Chickasaw County Auditor, she wanted to know if we were bringing the attorney.
Oh, really?
Well,